Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Kevin Smith. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for ProTrain. We're happy that you are filing down the virtual hallway into our session today. And we're just going to give folks maybe a couple minutes here to file in, and then we'll start. Hope everybody's having a great day. This is our second session of the day, and I can tell you that we've already had one great session this morning from our friend Chuck Havlicek at Aceware on Know Thy Customer, the power of personalized promotion. So I am certain that we will have another great session this afternoon. This afternoon session is Student Success in the Tech Economy. And our presenter today is Kirk Smallwood, who's the Vice President of Business Development for CompTIA. We want to take time out to thank all of our great sponsors that have stayed with us. As many of you are aware, this was supposed to be live in Savannah, Georgia. However, the current state of our nation and its health is not allowing that to happen, so we decided to do this virtually. Well, the response has been nothing shy of phenomenal, with over 3,000 individual session registrants across this week and well over 500 attendees in yesterday's session and close to 150 in our first session this morning. So once again, please note that these sponsors made this possible. Just note who's out there that have continued to be a large part of the success of this great week where education and industry help share best practices. Next slide. Some simple CETI housekeeping rules. First and foremost, this session's being recorded. So if you weren't able to be here, you're still going to hear it because we're going to send you the rendering as well as the links to the PDF files of Kirk's presentation, and all the recordings will be made available for everyone to see. When you log into the session, if you have to leave early, don't worry, you're still going to get sent the presentation and the recordings, okay? We understand that's part about being a business and trying to mind the farm wherever you're at. Attendees will automatically be muted when joining the session today. We ask that through Kirk's presentation, you use the Q&A box located in the lower navigation bar for all your questions. And at the end of the presentation, I'll review your questions with Kirk at the end of the session. If for any reason at all there are any unanswered questions, we'll have responses to those in a document that you can all read that we'll send out with the recording and Kirk's slides. We also ask to take the opportunity to post to social media using our hashtag CETI2020, and that you also consider joining our CETI alumni group on LinkedIn. Great way to stay in touch well after the presentations have ended this week and continue to do the professional collaboration that I think this week has brought about. Next slide. I'd like to introduce and welcome our presenter this afternoon, Kirk Smallwood. Kirk currently serves as the Vice President of Business Development for the U.S. academic market at CompTIA. CompTIA is the largest vendor-neutral IT certification body in the world. Kirk is also responsible for business development in Latin America and the Caribbean. Kirk has worked for the past 25 years for technology trade associations and was previously the director for the International Consumer Electronics Show, the largest technology show in the world. Kirk, I just want to tell you, if you ever need a travel companion for your Latin or Caribbean trips, I'm your man. Call me anytime, sir. With that said, let me welcome our presenter this afternoon, Kirk Smallwood.
Duly noted, Kevin, and thank you for the introduction. Thank you, of course, to CETI for inviting me to speak once again. It's always a pleasure to be with the ProTrain folks, and it's always a great conference, and appreciate you guys' adaptive ability to adjust to this COVID-19 issue, and the conference is going great already, so thank you so much. So for the agenda, we're going to discuss a few things, a little bit about CompTIA, just in case you're not familiar with us or with everything that we do. The IT skills gap, maybe you've heard of it. Certifications, career pathways, especially around cybersecurity. Some complementary academic resources. We have a lot of great resources that we love for you to take advantage of. And then some Q&A with whatever time we have left. And I'm happy to answer questions as long as we need to. So first question, we're gonna have a few poll questions just to kind of get a feel for where the audience is in terms of a few things. So first one is, how are you most familiar with CompTIA? A, certifications, B, membership, C, research, D, advocacy, or E, not familiar with CompTIA at all. And I'll just give a few minutes, not minutes, but a few seconds there for you guys to answer, and we can get a little bit of a feel for your knowledge of us, if at all. So hopefully you guys have heard of us in some aspect. I hope everyone's staying safe out there as well. Everyone's doing their best, I know. So it looks like the majority of you are familiar with us in terms of certifications, not surprising. And then quite a few of you are not familiar with CompTIA at all. Goody. Okay, I love when we have folks that aren't familiar with us at all, because it gives a chance to talk about brand new stuff to brand new people. So that's excellent. So thank you for participating in that. So first of all, CompTIA, we are a global not-for-profit IT association. We're most well known for our certifications, which are globally and industry recognized. However, we do a lot of other good stuff for the industry that the certification revenue powers for us in things like advocacy on behalf of the IT industry, and especially small IT businesses and workforce, so forth. We have a number of communities ranging around things like advancing women in IT, or cybersecurity, or could be anything, cloud, all types of different communities that help give us guidance on what they're seeing out there, challenges that they're facing in the industry right now, and how we can help. So we really bring the industry together to talk about solutions that we can participate in. We do some great research as well. We have all types of great research studies around the state of the tech industry, around the cybersecurity, around hiring, pretty much any subject you can think of. We do a lot of great research around that, working with folks like Burning Glass and so forth. And then we have a great foundation called Creating IT Futures, in which we take displaced workers, underserved workers, minorities, and help transition them into an IT career. These are folks that had absolutely no experience within IT, and now we're getting them trained up and getting them in entry-level jobs and apprenticeships to start an IT career, something that's a lot more stable than more than likely what they were already in at the time. So that gives you a little bit of idea about CompTIA. Let's talk about the IT industry and the skills gap. So currently, and this is, I'd do it a little bit more interactively if I was in person with you, but currently we have more than 1 million open IT jobs. We don't see this slowing down anytime soon, especially with COVID. We think it's just even going to empower more people to start looking at IT jobs, because they're just so important right now in terms of how many we need and how many we don't have in terms of people that are currently able to fill them. We actually anticipate this is going to go up to 1.6 million by 2025. So this is not going to slow down anytime soon. It's only going to expand. And again, I think, you know, a positive effect for the IT industry with COVID is you're going to have a lot more people looking at the IT industry as a better job for them in terms of stability and income and so forth. So it's not just that we have a lot of jobs in IT, it also pays well to be in IT. So a lot of people think, not correctly, that, well, there's so many jobs in IT because they don't pay well. And that's simply not true. I mean, you can get some really good entry-level jobs around $50,000. Of course, this varies via market, via city, but there's some excellent money to be made out there. And there's so much upward mobility too with these different jobs. And I'll show you some examples of a couple of them. But just so many open jobs out there. So it's not just a matter of number of jobs, it's also quality of jobs and quality of pay. As you can see here, non-IT occupations are about half median salary of IT occupations. So pretty impressive. So lots of good paying jobs out there. What we're hearing from organizations is that 8 out of 10 are concerned about the IT skills gap in various ways. One is lower staff productivity. So in other words, if your IT skills aren't up to par, your whole staff's going to be less productive. I mean, imagine if you're having all these network problems right now with everyone working from home, and you're having an issue with Zoom or what have you, you're going to have lower staff productivity. lower levels of customer service, lower sales or profitability, insufficient speed for new marketing, insufficient cybersecurity, and inability to keep up with competition. These are all major ways in which the skills gap in IT is negatively affecting businesses. And these are all shapes and sizes of business, not just any particular size. And what you're seeing is the postings for emerging technology jobs is really ramping up. So you're hearing a lot of buzzwords like AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning, artificial reality and virtual reality, robotics, automation, big data. These are probably words you hear a lot of. These are big buzzwords in the IT industry right now. And so you're seeing a huge growth index. If you look at the bottom hash there, all US occupations, so you can see the net jobs gain with that is very flat compared to a lot of these other core emerging tech jobs that are ramping up, like data scientists and CIOs and web development and support. These are ramping up at a pretty incredible rate. So again, we expect this to keep up for a number of years. What's behind the growth and the gap? Well, of course, there's a lot of money, billions, probably approaching trillions, in terms of new IT infrastructure with regards to things like smart cities, making cities more efficient, more smart, working with traffic, working with energy, all of those types of things. And then transportation systems, IoT and big data and analytics. You hear these terms all the time in terms of, Internet of Things. Now you have all these different connected devices in your home or in your office. There's just all talks of analyzing big data. Everything's about analytics, even when it comes to like sports teams. 5G wireless, your next phone, very good chance that it's going to be a 5G product, and 5G is going to be a big leap in terms of wireless speed. And so a lot of infrastructure being developed there. And then cybersecurity and surveillance, of course, with the growth in IT, that means more growth and need for cybersecurity, surveillance and workers that can keep tabs on everything and make sure everything's working properly and not being hacked. So, and then renewable energy as well. So just all these things are really powering things. But if you look back in, the not so distant past, there's really three key impact points that have affected the state right now, where we have so many open jobs and so many needs for these workers. One is the iPhone. What was that, about 12, 13 years ago when it first came out? It's created major disruption. Misnomers about tech careers that continue to this day, which is pretty frustrating from our perspective. And then coding. Coding has done a really good job of displacing other technology jobs and what people think about when it comes to tech. So first, let's talk about the iPhone. So when the iPhone first came out, all of a sudden you had this device that you could do all kinds of things with away from the desktop. You weren't limited to being productive just at your desktop. You could go off and be remote. You could check email. You could surf the web. You could do all kinds of cool things that, before you were limited to a desktop or a laptop. And so it made things much more flexible in terms of where you work. Secondly, it created a need for the cloud. If you think about all the different apps and so forth that the phone had, you needed now a place to access all your devices anytime, anywhere, or means to do that. You had the device, you had the phone, but you needed some way to access these things. So then groups like, Dropbox and Box and Microsoft Azure and all these different cloud organizations emerged, because now you want to be able to access your photos anytime, anywhere, all your documents anytime, anywhere. Basically, any device that you have now, you expect to access any document that you have as well. So it created this huge need for cloud companies. Amazon Web Services, obviously that started almost as an accident, where they were using their servers to run their business, and they had all this extra space on there, and they thought, maybe we can lend this stuff out to businesses to help them with their cloud services. And lo and behold, that's probably the area in which they're going fastest, is the cloud-based services. Coding became cool again, because guess what? Soon after they introduced the iPhone, they introduced the App Store. So you have all these cool apps that gave you the ability to do things that you couldn't do easily on a website. So it was easier to do something on the app. You could go in, check your bank's balance. You could deposit a check there through the app. You could do all kinds of cool stuff like that. So coding became cool again. Every business all of a sudden was looking for the ability to create an app that could help their customers do even more business with them and do more functionality with them. And then social media explode, because now you have this device where you can take pictures and post them. So all of a sudden, these companies like Facebook and LinkedIn and Snapchat and all these other social medias just exploded out of nowhere, because you had this device now that allowed you to really take advantage of what social media is. And so, again, created almost these markets that didn't exist before. The second thing that's made it a tough environment for us in terms of IT careers are the various misnomers about tech careers. In other words, people think you have to be a STEM genius, especially the M, which is math. People think you must be a math genius in order to get into tech, and that's absolutely not true. Our foundation proves that every year when they are working with displaced workers and getting them into tech. Most of these people are just average at math. We have them take a math test just to show that they're passable in math, but they're certainly not expecting to find any math geniuses. That certainly isn't one of the qualifications. And so these folks are doing well in IT careers without being math geniuses. But that's the impression. You got to be great in STEM, right? 2, you have to work for a tech company to be in tech. Well, that's obviously not true. Certainly, tech companies have tech jobs. However, every company has tech jobs. There's not a single company you can tell me that doesn't have a tech need, some type of, whether it's help desk support or cybersecurity or what have you. Every company has tech needs. The cool thing is, if you're a worker, you can kind of pick the industry that you want to be in and then work for that particular company in there. So if you're interested in sports, you're interested in entertainment, find the companies that work in there, and you can work in tech in those companies and in those fields. There's no jobs outside of cities. Obviously, that's untrue as well. Everyone's learning this now because everyone's learning that they can work remotely. So technology allows this. I work out of my home all the time, so this disruption hasn't been anything for me. I work out of my home all the time. Our office is based in Downers Grove, Illinois, and I'm in Virginia. But if I ever need tech support, it's really easy. The tech support can just kind of take over my computer and go in and figure out what's wrong with it, and they can do that. So you can do tech support from anywhere, for that matter. So jobs are everywhere, in every industry and every city. You have to have a 4-year degree. Again, very popular misnomer. And I blame a lot of this on just our culture and also parents as well. Parents are always telling their kids, like, nope, you're going to go to college, you're going to get a 4-year degree. When it comes to tech, that's absolutely not true. You don't have to have a 4-year degree. In fact, most of our business we do in the academic space, we do in the community college space, where you can get a 2-year associate's degree and then the appropriate certifications, and you're cooking with gas. You have a very good chance to get a well-paying, upward mobility type of IT job with just those 2 things. So 4-year degrees are kind of a thing of the past when it comes to IT. Could it help you eventually in an IT job? Sure, to have a 4-year degree at some point in your career. But in terms of breaking in, absolutely don't need one at all. Only jobs are in coding. And this brings me to my third premise, which is coding has swallowed the T in STEM. So coding has done a really good job of talking about the opportunity in coding and getting the mind share of what people think IT is, when in fact coding is just one part of it. It's pushed hardware to extracurricular. In other words, within like high school, for example, many times the technology related courses are considered extracurricular, but coding they'll push in there as a core component of school, because you've got something like, Girls Who Code or Hour of Code, or something that's relatively easy for a school to incorporate, and then they can check a box saying that we did something in IT. It also created an easy path to STEM. As I mentioned, great programs out there like, Hour of Code and things like that people can take advantage of. It has very high profile boosters like Bill Gates and Tim Cook, who say everyone should code, everyone should code. And again, nothing against coding. It's really important, and it does compromise, the single biggest job within IT, but it's only one part of IT. And that's way out of the diversity challenge. As I mentioned, they have great programs like Girls Who Code and things like that. But again, when you look at the overall tech occupations, coding is only about 30% of all tech jobs. There are lots of other jobs in networking and cybersecurity analysts and support specialists and database administrators. So again, we need coders, absolutely. But one thing that coding has done is just taken a lot of the focus off of all these other jobs when it comes to education and schooling and so forth. So just important to remember there's a lot more to IT than just coding. So what's needed? So what we hear from businesses is, right now, from prospective employees, they're looking at folks who not only have expertise, but are good at applying that expertise. It's one thing to know something. It's another thing to be able to use that and actually use that skill to do something. They're looking for folks that can interact with stakeholders better. They're looking at people that can manage people better, work well in a team environment. Looking less at people that can process data and collect data and things like that. They're looking at people that can really use that knowledge and can work with people, work as a team, have good people skills, and so forth. So this is kind of the new normal now for people that are doing the hiring. And then we're also hearing that HR and hiring managers are beginning to consistently rank certifications ahead of college degrees and hiring factors. Again, I'm not saying this is true of all jobs, but in IT, this is very true. Since there are so many open jobs, they are frankly desperate to find people that can work in here, and they're looking at certifications as a great seal of approval for those workers. And then, another thing that's really tough is right now we're expecting a lot out of teachers. We're in a big gap where there's so much technology and things are changing so rapidly. It's really hard for teachers of all types, whether they're in a secondary, post-secondary school, or whether they're in a for-profit training center. It's hard to keep with what's happening. And we'll talk about some of the things that we're doing on our side to try to help teachers in a little bit. And then soft skills for everyone. What we hear consistently among employers is they're looking for folks that can have leadership, have problem-solving abilities. Again, not just having knowledge, but the ability to apply that knowledge and solve problems. They're looking at folks who can collaborate and folks that communicate well with others, others on their level, others at higher levels, others below their level. I'm just talking about in terms of their job role. So these are all the things that they're looking for. And we also need to challenge the confidence gap. So I mentioned our foundation before. Nearly half of the people who work in tech came to the job from a non-tech first career. So again, that's 100% of the folks that go to our foundation's program called IT Ready and get these jobs. So you do not have to be in tech. You don't have to have experience to get into tech. It is a transition that can absolutely be made, and we prove this every day. So we just have to give people the confidence that they can do it. If someone is of a mentality that they can do it, they will do it, and we can help with that. And then we need more people to just simply believe that a tech career is possible. And these are all factors that are hindering our ability to fill these jobs. It's just people just think they can't do it, and they really need to believe that they can. So let's talk about certifications. So our second poll question is, do you currently incorporate certifications within your programs? And I'm talking about any programs. It could be IT, it could be anything. Do you currently incorporate certifications within your programs? And it's pretty simple, either yes, no, or working on it, thinking about it. So I don't know if that poll question's gone up yet. I don't see it on my screen. There we go. So we'll give 20, 30 seconds for you guys to take a look at that one. Do you currently incorporate certifications in your programs? Yes, no, working on it. I probably should have added thinking about it. Working on it sounds like it's in a later stage than thinking about it, but oh well, we'll get the gist of it. So again, thank you for these poll questions. Takes an extra minute, but it's just good to get a feel for where you guys are at right this second. Let's see. So excellent. So 80% of you guys have certifications in your programs already. That's excellent. And then another 12% are working on it. So very good. So if I was talking to the folks who said no, I'd be very curious as to why you don't incorporate certifications in your program. But hopefully I can overcome some of your preconceived notions or barriers to doing so, because I truly believe no matter what industry you're teaching towards, there's a certification out there that you probably should be taking a look at for your students. So why are certifications so heavily thought of right now? Well, in our case, in the case of many other certification bodies that are worth their salt, our certifications are created by the industry for the industry. So what we do as a vendor agnostic, not-for-profit association is we take a look out there. We listen to our company partners, we listen to the workers, and we understand, is there a need for a certification? In other words, if there's not enough demand for it, we're certainly not going to go through all the effort and trouble and bring the industry together to create it. There's got to be a need for it. So we do a lot of analysis of what the particular role is, what are the specific tasks around that job. So job task analysis, we really understand what would that job entail. If that job was created, what's involved in it. We then bring in subject matter experts. So these can be even competitors that are all sitting at the table together to help us understand what specifically are the requirements of the cert, what should be covered on the cert, what subjects, what objectives, what types of questions, and they literally help us write the questions. So we bring, if our office was open right now, we'd have more than likely this week have probably 20 to 25 subject matter experts in our room in the basement of the building. where they are in there for a week straight, sometimes 2 weeks, and they're helping us write the questions and really truly create the exam. And then when you're like us, we are ANSI ISO accredited, so that means we have to perform ongoing maintenance every 3 years to refresh the exam because things change, especially in technology, obviously, right? So in order to be current and ANSI ISO accredited, we have to keep up that cert. And so every 3 years, you're going to see a brand new cert from us, maybe called the same cert, but it's going to be different in many ways. So it's created by the industry for the industry. We're not doing this in a vacuum. We're working with the industry to create it. So it truly is an industry seal of approval once we create it. The top 5 benefits of certified IT staff is pretty interesting. So remember, I mentioned some of the things that employees were looking for a couple slides ago. Well, guess what? Certification tends to bring out many of these capabilities within the workers that take them. So better able to understand new technologies. They're more productive. They're better at problem solving. They're better at project management. And everyone needs to have some level of project management, right? Pretty much no matter what your job is, you're doing some type of project management. And then better communication skills. So a really nice byproduct of being certified is not just the seal of approval that you have knowledge, skills, and abilities in the subject matter that you're studying, but you also have a lot of these other great features around being more productive and problem solving and so forth. So that's a really good thing. And that's why, again, employers are looking for certifications on resumes. So certifications versus degrees, at this time, I usually ask people, what do they think? Is it an either or is it an and? And in my personal opinion, it's definitely an and. I don't think you want one or the other. I think you want both. And I'll talk to you a little bit later about how, one of the things you can do, especially if you're a community college, is really incorporate the certification within your program. It's not really as hard as you think, or some people think. So to me, they're both needed. I don't think you can go wrong with having both. Whereas if you have one or the other, some employers may look past you because you're missing a key element. So let me just talk about briefly our career pathways. So we're, as I mentioned, the largest vendor neutral IT certification body in the world. And so we're really known for, especially our foundational certs like IT fundamentals. I'm here on the top left of the screen, A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus. Those core certs there are the backbone for almost any IT career. So you start there, and those will absolutely get you in the door, many doors for IT careers. And then from there, it depends on kind of which pathway you go. For us, we focus on things like infrastructure and cybersecurity. And so for infrastructure, we have a Linux Plus, a Server Plus, and a Cloud Plus, a little bit more advanced. And then also more advanced security pathway certs, which are CYSA Plus, Pen Test Plus, and CASP. And our 2 newest certs are CYSA Plus and Pen Test. And then we have some additional professional certifications around Project Plus, Cloud Essentials, and Certified Technical Trainer, or CTT Plus. But what the big 3, I would say, are A+, Net Plus, and Security Plus. Those have been around the longest. They're the certs that we sell the most. Why? Again, because they're truly the backbone for pretty much any IT career. I'm going to talk a little about cybersecurity, especially because, as you can imagine, the demand for cybersecurity workers especially is off the charts for a number of reasons. There are a lot of factors complicating cybersecurity out there, and these are just a few of them. But from what we hear from employers, these are some of the ones that we hear the most of. There are organizations of hackers out there. I mean, you will read about this in the paper. There are hackers out there that will group together. They will blackmail you. I've got one a couple months ago where this organization was saying they had video of me doing bad stuff, and they were going to release it if I didn't pay them. And I said, yeah, whatever. And I deleted it. But there are hackers out there that will do all types of stuff to try to get you to pay. And it's bad. I mean, these are growing in existence out there. Greater tech interconnectivity. Of course, we talked about before, there are now, I guarantee you, probably most of the people on this phone don't just have a laptop, but they've got a phone, they might have a tablet. And, for myself, I've got other devices in my home. I've got smart bulbs. I've got a thermostat that can be controlled through my phone. So you've got all these different types of technologies that are connected there. So that opens up the doors for more cybersecurity hacks. Sophistication of security threats as well. So funny story. So my nephew was up visiting me, and he slept on the couch. In the morning I came down and I said, I forgot to give you my Wi-Fi network. And he said, no worries. And I'm like, what, are you on my network already? And he said, no, I'm on your neighbor's. I said, how'd you get on my neighbor's network? He said, you don't want to know. And I said, well, no, I don't want to know. And he said, but don't worry, your network is safe. So if my teenage nephew has the ability to break into my neighbor's Wi-Fi, imagine what the pros have. And that falls into also the greater availability of hacking tools out there. There's a lot that are out there for anyone and everyone to take part in. The rise of social networking. So here's a great example of how social networking can affect cybersecurity. So somebody on my team, which will remain unnamed, was out with another person on my team, dinner after a conference, and they got, I think, the waiter to take a picture of them at the table and said, hey, having a great night out after whatever conference they were at. Posted it on LinkedIn, on Snapchat, on Twitter, etc. I looked at the picture and I blew it up and I said, take that picture down now. You can see your credit card on the table. So the picture was so clear that you could see the credit card laying there because they were paying in the middle of paying the check when they were talking to the waiter. So I mean, anyone could do that, right? Anyone could slip up on that, and so that would open up all kinds of issues for people that got that credit card. So social networking, also to say nothing of the fact that, if you're posting there, hey, I'm on vacation, having a great time in the Bahamas or whatever, well, obviously people then know you're not at your home. And if they know where your home is, then what else can they do there? So social networking is, it's nice, it helps you stay in touch, but it can also open lots of doors for the hackers. The volume of security threats, I talked to somebody from the DoD, and they mentioned that the .gov website domain gets 3 million attempted hacks a day. I'm sure it's gone up. This was like a year and a half ago. I'm sure it's quite higher now, but that just gives you an idea of the sheer volume of security threats that people have to deal with. More reliance on internet applications. I mean, obviously, as I said before, like everything's connected, right? Your doorbells, your lights, your bulbs. I mean, whatever. Everything's connected, and everything's more reliant on the internet. So have you had lately, like your internet go down in your house? I know I have, and all of a sudden I'm helpless because, I stream things from the internet when I watch TV. I'm working from home, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm almost like helpless now because all these internet applications, when they go down, it's bad. And then continue to use the legacy systems. I mean, the federal government will not tell you this, but I will. I mean, there's many old systems they have in there because they have a lot of proprietary systems that they had created just for them. But they're also very out of date. And so because it's proprietary and it's not something that's commonly worked on, a lot of the stuff is out of date. So there's use of that. And then challenges with security expertise. We talked about that before. And then the consumerization of IT. Everyone has a phone. Everyone has, Internet of Things devices. It's no longer like where, only, like rich people have these things, or only, certain really connected folks have these things. Everyone's got these things. So it's totally consumerized. Everything's trickled down. And who knows what types of things we'll have in our hands in, the next 10 years that we couldn't even dream of. So all these things are making it very hard on businesses. And, another point is that things have evolved as well. The attacks are getting more and more complicated. I remember back in the 90s, one of my first jobs was working, and I remember getting this I love you virus. And so it started out just with viruses. I mean, looking back now, they were relatively simple. You had to get the email, you had to open it up, and you had to send it to somebody in order to pass it along. And then they evolved to worms. They evolved where you didn't even have to open it and send it to somebody. It would just automatically detect who your contacts were, and then it would send it to them automatically. So it got more and more devious. And then you have these things called botnets, which you'll see all the time if you go on Twitter, and especially with all the politics going on, you'll see a lot of people posting stuff, and then there's actually tools you can see, like if something is just a bot. So in other words, it's people just posting fake stuff. These are bots posting things that appear like people. So this is happening a lot right now on Twitter, especially. And then advanced persistent threats. So this is where we are today. And the hack that really opened our eyes on these advanced persistent threats was the Target hack several years ago. And there were others as well, but I feel like the Target hack was the one that really opened our eyes to these advanced persistent threats. And why were these so like revolutionary? It was because these threats were invisible, and normal things like firewalls and malware detection, they weren't finding these things or stopping these things. So you had to be able to go in there and know what you're looking for in order to spot them. So this was like a whole nother animal that just we weren't ready for. And again, the target hack really opened our eyes on this. And so because of that, I talked about how, we create certifications based on need. Because of that, the security analyst job role exploded. Once we found out about the target hack and what these advanced persistent threats, all of a sudden there needed to be more information security analysts, people that were able to go in there and find these threats that were seemingly hidden. So this growth was some of the fastest growth that the Department of Labor had ever seen. I dare say it was like the biggest growth they've ever seen for a specific job role. So it just shows you how technology changes everything, not just the devices that we use, but the job needs that we need to use those devices. And so our response to that was we created one of our newer search was called Cybersecurity Analyst, which educated people on how to go in and use threat detection tools and go in and find those threats. So going in and making sure that you're spotting these invisible threats and that you know how to use the tools that can help detect those. So what's new in terms of what we've been up to? So we had some really good timing where once COVID happened, we quickly pivoted, and within a month, we were able to launch CompTIA remote testing. So we worked with Pearson VUE, who's our primary test center, well, actually our only test center partner. But normally, of course, people are taking tests at school test centers or at other businesses out there. And all of a sudden now, when COVID hit, there was no place to test. And so we were able to quickly pivot where we're using Pearson VUE's platform, which they have actually had out for 5 years. And now people can take tests anytime, anywhere. And the great thing about it is it truly is 24/7. The advantages to remote testing versus a regular in-person test is if you want to take an exam at 2 in the morning on a Sunday, feel free, knock yourself out. You can do that. There are proctors out there that will do that. And the great thing is the technology is there where it's completely safe and secure. It's just as secure as taking it in person, because what you have to do is go through a system test to make sure that your system is up to speed. It's got a good enough monitor. You actually have to take your camera and show around the environment that you're in. You must have be in a room with a closed door. You can't have anything on the walls. You can't have a second monitor. You can't have anyone else in the room. The proctor can detect this, and also the technology can detect if your eyes are moving around, if you're clicking on something, if you're looking down at your phone, if you're looking at notes. It can hear, see, and sense what's going on. So it really is secure. And I think that now the genie's out of the bottle. And I think that if you're a testing provider and if you don't have a remote testing option, I think you're going to be really scrambling, because I think this will be the new norm. I think people will really truly want to do remote testing as opposed to doing it in person. I don't see any reason why you'd rather go into a testing environment and do it when you can do it in the comfort of your own home. So that's a really big deal. The other thing we launched is Cert Master Learn. So obviously there's been such a need now for distance learning, and because you're not in a classroom all the time, you've had to adjust, the students have, and maybe some of the people on the phone as well, have had to adjust to distance learning. So we had launched our Cert Master Learn IoT product, which is specially made for either distance learning or in-person learning. And it's truly e-learning. It's like a textbook on steroids. It's where you can go in, you can watch videos, you see all kinds of interactive questions, performance-based questions, multiple choice questions, but stuff that really engages you. And the teacher, even if they're remote, can detect all types of cool data on you, like how much are you struggling with this, or how much are you getting it? What do you need more help on? It helps them with remediation. So our new learning products are huge, and we'll talk about them in a little bit, I think. And then our data analytics pathway we're working on as well. So this, I mentioned we have an infrastructure pathway and a cybersecurity pathway. Our next pathway is going to be around data analytics. This may be pushed back a little bit. We had an ETA of sometime in 2021. We're obviously behind some because the office is shut down. We can't bring in subject matter experts, but I still think there's a chance we get out at least one cert there by the end of 2021. We'll probably have somewhere between 1 to 3 certs in that pathway. So look for that as well. But that's something that, again, we've been hearing lots of demand for, some kind of certification validation around data analytics and the ability to do that. My third and last poll question is, are you currently doing distance learning with your students? Yes, no, or working on it? We've been talking to, obviously, lots of school partners. It sounded like, I would say for the most part, we were hearing that most were doing some kind of distance learning. It certainly varied a lot between like high school and post-secondary. for sure. High school, I think we're having a lot of struggle with it. I know my kids are both in secondary, and they were doing classes where they weren't even being graded because it just wouldn't be fair. And they had a lot of technical issues with setup. They were using, I think, Blackboard, and their Blackboard wasn't up to date and so forth. So a lot of issues out there with the high schools. I got the sense from a lot of community colleges, though, that they were doing something, they were a little bit more prepared for it, which is good. So I guess we'll get our answers here in a minute, but just curious how you guys are doing with distance learning. I'm also hearing a lot of folks saying that they're, evaluating fall, and it may be a hybrid model. If they figure that out, it may be something where some folks are doing distance learning, some are going into the classroom with obviously different setups with classrooms with more distance in between the students. So 68% of you, which is great, are doing distance learning. About 9% of you know, and then another 23% are working on it. So I would expect that this number will be a lot closer to 100% over the next number of months, is my guess. So interesting. Everyone's kind of in the same boat. So what do we learn from the COVID-19 crisis? Obviously, e-learning materials are a must. If you are requiring your students to buy books, I would strongly recommend stop. I would strongly recommend that whatever materials you're buying need to have the ability to be used online as well. So whether it be, again, some of the e-learning, e-books or e-learning, online labs, online test prep, things that can be used with a laptop, with a cell phone, etc. If you're mandating that your students are buying books, I would say you're very outdated. I think now is the time to transition to e-learning materials. I remember when Steve Jobs, and I think a couple months before he passed away, one of his last meetings was with President Obama, and he said, "Whatever you do, please stop requiring students to carry around all these books. There's no reason for it. There are tablets out there." Apple's, Microsoft's, whatever. There's tablets out there. You can do all this great stuff. It has more functionality, and there's just no reason for anyone to be carrying on a whole bunch of books at this point. They truly are in a way outdated at this point. Secondly, the nice thing is, even though the COVID-19 pandemic was terrible, is terrible still, the good thing is we're at least much better prepared to handle this right now. So there's so many, we're on Zoom right now. It's a great tool. We've had tools out there like WebEx for years, but they just didn't have the functionality or reliability that they do now. And there's so many options out there. You've got Zoom, you've got Adobe Connect, you've got GoToWebinar. There's a million out there. Many of them have free accounts up to a certain point, or free trials. So the technology is just so much better. I can't tell you how much better this Zoom platform is than I think we used to use Skype for Business several years ago, and it was nowhere near the functionality or ease of use that this is. So at least with all this going on, we're at a much better position to handle what's going on. Obviously, technology issues. We talked to a lot of schools who did not properly prepare for this. They thought they did. They thought they had a distance learning platform, but either they didn't think about things like people posting inappropriate things within the chat that they didn't know how to shut out, or students that didn't have a laptop at home or didn't have Wi-Fi at home. And so, the nice thing is there are a lot of schools and also organizations that were stepping up and providing laptops, and schools that were helping try to create Wi-Fi hotspots and things like that for people. So all of a sudden you realize that, if your students don't have Wi-Fi or a laptop at home, then it's going to be very hard for them. So you have to really work on making sure that folks have the right technology and equipment. And then preparation. Obviously, I can tell you for this webinar, we spent a lot of time, I did, and all the other presenters did, working with CETI. We did some dry runs on this to try to think of anything possible that could go wrong. And I think did a really good job at covering some of the issues that might arise, and knock on wood, so far everything's gone really smoothly, I think. But preparation, think about anything that could go wrong, because it probably will go wrong if you don't think about it. So preparation in your classes. And then, as I said, I think remote testing is going to be the preferred way of testing in the future. We've already seen, since we launched remote testing, I think we've seen anywhere between 500 to 1,000 tests a day for CompTIA certs. So the teeter-totter has shifted from in-person to distance learning, in-person to remote testing overnight. It's amazing. So again, I would say for cert bodies that you may be testing to, I would make sure that they have some type of remote testing option, because it'll make it a lot easier in the future on you and your students. And what can you do just overall as organizations when it comes to certifications and the job market? So you can become a trusted pipeline to your local business. So if you're not already, if you're a community college, four-year college, you should be truly understanding what the jobs are out there with your local businesses. You should be constantly having discussions, understanding what are the specific job roles, because if you can teach to those roles and teach to those specifications that they have, you guys will be heroes, and you'll have a constant pipeline to steer your students in that direction, to saying, hey, we've got something lined up for you already. If you complete this course, you get the certification, you're gold. Second, identify the top industry recognized certs. So whatever field you're teaching towards, I don't care if it's healthcare, IT, engineering, whatever, identify what the top industry recognized certs are out there, because as I hope I've demonstrated, they're becoming more and more recognized and in demand in terms of certifications. Because again, the ones that are out there that are good, like CompTIAs, like Microsoft, Cisco's, whatever, they are created by the industry for the industry, and it's like an economic passport. You can use them in any country all over the world. So if you end up moving, you're somebody who moves a lot, you're in the military, whatever, that Security Plus certification is going to be just as good in Japan as it's going to be in the US. So the top certs are globally and industry recognized and come with that seal of approval. Map your classes and make sure you and your students review the exam objectives. So we work with so many schools, and they say like, well, yeah, I mean, we have our own course, but I mean, we don't know how to incorporate certifications within there. We can help you with that. We can look at your course design, your course setup, what you're covering, and we can map it to our exam objectives and help you tweak your course a little bit. So if you just add a couple things, you're probably going to prepare your students to take, the exam. And you should be doing that again with any cert bodies that you're looking at. We can help you make sure that your course aligns to the exam objectives. And so that'll help your students be prepared to take the cert, and then they come out with a degree and a certification, making them truly job ready out there. Get your instructor certified. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to classes or teachers of classes that have said, well, my students aren't doing really well in here. What's the problem? And the first question I ask is, well, is the instructor or are you certified in the current certification that you're teaching? And almost without fail, the answer is, well, I've got the last version. That doesn't work. You've got to have the current certification version in order to truly teach your students correctly. And we'll talk about, again, how we can help with that. And then make certs a mandated part of the outcome. Tell them about the college credit many times that it'll help you get. So sometimes folks transfer from college from one college to another. Most industry recognized certs will provide some type of a college credit to that college. But if you make certs a mandated part of the outcome, then it gets them that experience in taking the exam. I think it's really important. So whether you count that cert as part of your grade or not, make them take the cert, because it gives them that experience. If they're getting into IT, for example, they're gonna have to get used to taking a lot of certs along their pathway. It's just the way it is. So the earlier you can get them engaged in taking the actual cert and getting that experience, the better. So I strongly recommend that. And then explain the importance of the certification. Hopefully I've given you a few talking points, and I'm happy to talk more offline with any of you around the importance of the certification. Why is it so important? Why does the industry require it? What goes into making it, et cetera, et cetera. Let's talk about some complimentary resources. We'd love to give you guys some free stuff. That's what we're all about. So some complimentary resources. We have a free Academy Partner Program which is designed to help you incorporate our certs into your program. We provide a lot of different things in terms of resources for recruiting, training, certifying, upgrading the skills of your students. It's truly designed to help schools promote certification and enhance the career opportunities there. And so some of the benefits and resources are, first and foremost, you get heavy discounts on our exams and also all of our content. We have a whole suite of labs, books, test prep that you get discounts on for being a partner. Again, free to sign up, and then you automatically get the discounts. I talked about the importance of instructors being up to speed on the current cert that they're teaching. We provide complimentary instructor exam vouchers so that the instructor can get certified. We don't want cost to be any barrier for the instructor to get certified, because it's critically important that they know what they're talking about, obviously, in the classroom. Certification testing, we can help you become a Pearson VUE testing center. If you want to have something in person, again, we've got the remote testing as well. We can help you get that set up. We can help you, you gear your students so that they can do the purchasing of the certification vouchers instead of you. There are some schools that we deal with that simply don't want to deal with the transaction of purchasing the vouchers. They don't want to increase their price, what have you. And so we've created ability for the student themselves to purchase the voucher and get the academic rate that you guys get as partners. And then we have a way for you guys to track your students' test results. Sometimes they give the student the voucher and they say, go take the test, and they never hear from the student again as far as what their test result was. Well, as long as you have the voucher number, we have a means for you to use our certification validation tool so you can get the pass-fail results of your students. So even if they don't tell you what they did, if you know the voucher number that you gave to them, you can track that, and we can help you with stuff like that too. Also, we have instructional resources like all the exam objectives for the certification, so you can see in detail what is being covered in the cert. We have, of course, our own CompTIA approved learning materials. We have really cool roadmaps. I'll show a couple of those. We have posters and different visual aids for your classrooms. We have great webinars that we do around any number of subjects. We did one around our remote testing since we had just launched that a couple of months ago. And then access to the IT community with our events and conferences. We have a partner summit coming up next month, for example, and then the CompTIA Instructor Network I'll talk a little bit more about. We have this great new interactive career pathway that we launched at this site. So you can give this to your students or anyone really for that matter, and they can click on these like IT support specialist or IT networking. They can get a feel for the median national salaries, the annual number of job postings, and they can click learn more, and they can learn things like what are the specific certs that are in there that they need to be looking at, whether it be ours or other industry recognized certs. We're not being just all about CompTIA here. It's all about the other industry recognized certs on that pathway. Another great site is called cyberseek.org. With this site, you can click on a particular state and you can see the ratio of qualified cybersecurity workers to the job demand. And quick spoiler alert, you're going to find that it's a poor ratio in every state in the US. So, but not only does it tell you that, but also tells you the specific types of jobs that are in demand in those cyber jobs in those states. And then it gives you different pathways along with salaries and different types of skills that are required. So this is all, these are really cool interactive sites. And these are good for whether it's the instructor, whether it's the student, whether it's the dean, policymakers. This is really great site to share with them. And we do this working with Burning Glass. We got a grant from the National Initiative for Cyber Education, and we worked with Burning Glass to develop this site, and we update it regularly. So this is one of our more popular sites. Also, we have the CompTIA Instructor Network. As I mentioned, one of our biggest struggles in the IT industry is that there's just not nearly enough qualified instructors. And so I mentioned some of the efforts that we've done to try to upskill the instructors so that they can teach the courses. And one of those ways is the CompTIA Instructor Network. And this is a free network for instructors to join. Really two main things it does. Number one is it provides a great discussion board for one instructor to ask another, the whole panel of instructors questions. So, hey, I'm having a hard time with this A+ class in my classroom with this specifically. Has anyone experienced this? What did you do? Please help me. And you'll find that the instructors are just extremely helpful. They want to help each other. They want to pass along their knowledge and best practices. But secondly, maybe the big thing that the Instructor Network does is anytime we release a new certification, the next version, what have you, we do a series of webinars, train the trainer webinars over the course of several weeks on the cert. So here's what's new. Here are the key objectives. Here's some things that you might want to really emphasize. Here's some ways you might want to cover this, et cetera, et cetera. So it really helps prepare the instructors. And even if you can't attend live, they're archived in there. You can watch the videos at any time. So we have something like, I think it's like 3,000 instructors that are within this instructor network. And it's instructors of all types, academic, for-profit, corporate, what have you. It's a great site, a really great resource. There's just a look at some of the different types of webinars that were recorded here. As you can see, you can access any of these at any time. And then another great site is called cyberstates.org, and this shows, there's a full report you can download, but it shows, again, the ratio of we talked about cyberstate specifically to cybersecurity jobs. This is for all IT jobs. And again, you can go state by state. You can see, how you compare to other states in there, in terms of the wages, in terms of the types of jobs, the number of jobs. Just another great resource, cyberstates.org. Highly encourage you to take a look at that. We update that regularly as well. Again, you can go in here, you can see the leading types of tech occupation jobs overall, leading tech sectors, tech job postings, et cetera. It's just a lot of great data in there. I'm not going to overwhelm you with it, but please encourage you to take a look at it. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions. And then that is it for my presentation. I am probably threw a lot at you. I am more than happy to answer any questions that Kevin, you see fit for me to answer. And then as always, if you think of something afterwards, please let me know. You can contact me via phone, via email. You can see my LinkedIn profile there. We are happy to help, happy to talk to you about the program or anything else that you are interested in. And hopefully this has given you some insight as to why certifications are important, why the IT industry is growing now and seemingly forever, and the amazing opportunity there for you and your students.
Well, Kirk, thanks for a great presentation. We've got some time here. I want to give people the opportunity to go down below to the toolbar to the Q&A, and I've got 3 questions so far, Kirk. So the first one we have is a question. I thought I read that the CompTIA ITF Plus is going away.
No, that's incorrect. I have a feeling I know why that might have gotten confused. So ITF Plus, for those of you who don't know, that is not a quote unquote job ready cert. In other words, if you put ITF on your resume, employers aren't going to give you a job like they would A Plus or Network Plus or Security Plus. ITF is a great, I call it a digital literacy cert that gives the person taking it a great broad overview of technology. How does cloud work? How does coding work? Some basic tenets of cybersecurity, things like that. It's a cert that we really push early grades in high school to take advantage of, because the idea is we hope it'll spark students to think, oh, this IT is really interesting. I think I want to study more about this, and maybe specifically around, cloud or something like that. Or for career changers to get a feel for if they have an interest or an aptitude in technology. So again, it's a really broad overview of technology. So one thing we found out when we launched the remote testing is we have a specific site license for ITF. And the site license is for ITF is you buy a package of either 50 or 100 ITF vouchers, and included in that is an ebook and some teaching tools and so forth. And we do it to make it really easy for, especially like a high school instructor, to incorporate ITF into their class. Well, what we found, and it does it for a really low price. But what we found out, unfortunately, is that specific site license voucher for ITF does not work with remote testing. The reason we were able to get that, negotiate the price so low, is so every time somebody takes an exam, we owe Pearson VUE money because they're our testing provider. The cost of the ITF site license vouchers were much lower because it uses something called Anywhere Proctored. So a teacher could proctor that the students taking ITF anywhere. All they have to do is go through this agreement and do a quick process where they become the proctor, and they can do it anywhere. And when we found out that was the case, we took ITF site license down from the store so that we wouldn't have anyone accidentally buying that, because they were probably going to get really upset that they couldn't then use that site license voucher right now with all the test centers closed. So we took it down for a while, but then we still had people calling us saying, hey, we want to buy ITF site license. And we said, well, you can't use it right now. You realize that, right? You can't do in-person unless your state has opened up, space where you can go, gather students in a place and proctor it. You can't use this. And they said, no, that's fine. We want to buy it now for use in the fall or maybe in the spring. So we put it back on the store. But for a brief period, a few weeks, we had taken ITF site license off the store. It's back on now, but we had included some language that says, note that this cannot be used with remote proctoring. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but no, ITF is still there and always will be, hopefully. Let's see, I see a question that says, is ITF the same as the CompTIA Foundation certification? Well, we call it IT Fundamentals. So it's just, again, we really view it as like a digital literacy cert, a great introduction to IT, gives you just a nice broad overview. It's kind of like a mile wide and an inch deep type of thing. It's not a job ready cert, but it's designed to really spark that interest in IT from those that are not in IT or from, like ninth graders, et cetera. So I hope that answers your question.
Well, it does.
If not,
And I
please.
will tell you,
Okay.
Kirk, we have told, because more and more high schools are realizing that there are some at-risk students and maybe not going to college, but they are very tech savvy when it comes to all the games and everything else that they like to play. That's a ripe audience, if you will, for initial certifications. And so our training assessment managers, for example, if they've not had anything at all, will head them the ITF route and say, okay, let's see how Johnny or Sally does in that. And if that really goes well for you, okay, now let's start talking about what we call the fundamentals, the A+, Net+, Security Plus fundamentals, and then see where your career aspirations want to go, be it infrastructure or cyber or whatever. So exactly what you said is exactly what we've been telling our high school partners and our school partners and any individual students that might pick up the phone and call us and ask that same question. The next question
Awesome.
we've got is, will the data analytics certs require the initial 4 certs, the ITF, A+, Net+, Security Plus pathway as prerequisites?
So with any of our certs, it's kind of an either or type thing. We'll put recommended either certs that you hold or experience. So if you have experience that would take the place of basically the types of job roles that you would get, like A+, Net+, Security Plus, then no, don't worry about getting those other certs. If you don't have that requisite experience, then yes, we'll certainly recommend, as with all of our pathways, A+, Net+, Security Plus, those really provide the backbone before you launch into those specific career pathways. So it's with any of our certs, we recommend, holding these certs or equivalent job experience. So we recognize that somebody may not have some of our certs, but may have been doing something on the job that for years that certainly would take the place of that. So I hope that answers your question. It's really kind of an either or thing. We recommend a certain level of experience or certain certs that you should have before jumping into these specific pathways. So I hope that helps.
Right. Let me ask you kind of a follow-on to that. So let's say either one of my guys don't know how to answer that question or somebody else. Is there kind of a helpline that somebody can call at CompTIA Central to ask something like that?
Oh gosh, you mean to discuss more so for like a data analytics pathway, somebody needs to know, can you tell me more about recommended prerequisites? Is that what you're asking?
Right. Say they have some specific things in their background and they just want a sounding block. Okay.
Gosh, I mean, they could start with me, and then I'm happy to talk to them, or for every cert that we have a flyer that on the back will say, recommended experience or prerequisites, and it will list those things. So they're happy. I'm happy to have them start with me. I can send them specific information on that, and then also that interactive career pathway site that I showed you as well. Obviously, we'll update that as well with some of the data analytics stuff that once we have that come out, and again show more specifics around the different types of job roles, the different types of experience, whether you're beginner, intermediate, or expert. That's one thing I didn't show on that pathway. It shows the different types of job roles and different types of certifications you would need, whether you're in a beginner role, intermediate, or kind of mastery or expert level. So happy to start with me. I'm always happy to field those calls.
All right, that's fantastic. Another question. Following the recommendation to move away from textbooks to online digital media, what content is recommended for A+, Net+, and Security Plus?
Well, that feels like a trick question, because obviously
it kind of is. I know the answer, but I'm not gonna hit your tripwire. Go ahead.
So brief history. So for years and years, we created the certifications, and then there was a whole content kind of ecosystem where there was all these other companies that were creating content for our certifications. And we just had the certs, and we had these content partners and so forth. And a few years ago, we thought, we really should have our own offering as well. And it wasn't to like put people out of business. It wasn't anything, but here's what we were hearing over and over again. Number one, when we would sign up a new academy partner, for example, they're like, okay, we're going to start an A+ course. And what curriculum do you have? And the first thing we'd have to do is say, well, we don't have any curriculum, but there's all these partners out there that we're going to point you towards, and you can figure it out on your own. And that felt really wrong to us, to just like kind of almost shove them out there into the wilderness and say, figure it out, because we couldn't necessarily recommend any specific one above another. We just had to say, well, there's this company, there's all these companies out there, you figure, some of them do labs, some of them do test prep, some of them do books, and kind of you figure it out. And we're thought, okay, well, first of all, that doesn't feel right. Number two, we were hearing from folks that like some of the stuff that was out there, and I'm not gonna name it, there's some really good stuff out there and there's some not so good stuff out there. And we were hearing from folks that, some of that stuff didn't seem to align much to the objectives of the cert. Like once we really dug into it, it didn't seem like it was preparing the kids for the cert. And like, that's the last thing we want to hear. So again, we made a decision a few years ago that we were going to create our own content. And so we did this by, we bought one of our partners we bought called GTS Learning, and then we acquired the IP of another company called Logical Operations. And we spent the next year and a half plus talking to customers of both that had used the content for both of those. And we said, what do you like about it? What don't you like about it? What's missing? What would make it easier for you to use? How can we just make it better? And so then after doing all that, then we launched our own official CompTIA content. And so now we have our own books, labs, and test prep. And the advantages are, again, one, you can come to one place and get everything. You can come to us and get your search. You can get your content. Secondly, the nice thing is we offer content for every one of our certs. There are some partners out there that may only offer, say A+, Net+ Security Plus, but don't have anything for pen test or CYSA Plus or whatever. We, of course, have content for all of our certs. And then three, we're going to make sure that we update it in a timely fashion. Sometimes you'll find that like when a cert is launched, you'll see some of the content partners sometimes a month later or a couple months later, then finally they launch their cert. Our goal is to have our content launch, day and date with the new cert. And then fourth, because we're producing all that content, books, labs, and test prep, we can make sure that the terminology is consistent across the three things. I mean, you can imagine if you bought books from one place, content from another, labs from another place, and, test prep from another place, there's going to be some terminology that may not be completely consistent across there, or just the method that's laid out. Since we create all that stuff, we can create it in a way that it's in sync with each other, if that makes sense. So thank you for the trick question. I'm not saying that there's not other good stuff out there. There certainly is. We know that, but we wanted to have our own offering as well for all of those reasons.
Right. So in that content, Kurt, I want to make sure that people understand that content. Does that come in a textbook or does that come in an ebook?
We have both. So we have traditional print books, and if you buy a print book, it also comes with an ebook. However, we also have our CertMaster Learn product, which we call e-learning. So we have a print book that has a corresponding ebook, but then we have what we call our e-learning. And so I think ultimately we think the future of our content is the CertMaster Learn product, because that CertMaster Learn product has so much more capabilities in terms of reporting to the teacher. The teacher can see exactly what you're working on, how much time you spent on it, what you're struggling with, both individually or as an aggregate. It has performance-based questions. It has like built-in multiple choice questions and performance-based questions and built-in tests to help prepare you. There's videos in there. So it's like an ebook on steroids is my point for CertMaster Learn. So we have both offerings, and we don't necessarily care which one you use, whatever works for you best. But just know that the CertMaster Learn is kind of like it's like at another level in terms of the e-learning. But the ebook is good too. The ebook is good too. It's just, you'll if you compare the two, you'll see the CertMaster Learn is just another level. And we think that Master Learn product is where things are going, where people will expect that level of functionality in the future. So anyway, does that help?
Yes. Okay. I picked up another question over in the chat box. I'm gonna go to that now. Come back to the Q&A box. What is your take on Google IT Cert as an intro into the IT field?
I think we actually did a press release with them on this, to be honest, and I should know better, but I think we think it's fine. But it's not, those are not like job ready certs. I think it's a nice, cert to get some exposure to and learn a few things, but I don't think employers are looking at any of the Google IT certs and thinking like, oh yeah, boom, you're hired. They're not quite at that level as like an A+, Net+, Security+, but
so you put it on the same lines as the ITF Plus course.
Yeah, somewhere around. Yeah, it's more of a sort of that type of nature. Exactly.
Okay, right. All right. Our next question is: will CompTIA start to consider Cloud Plus in the future as being part of the big three? Well, which means that almost implies that one of the three went away. But does the big three become the big four?
No, I know what you mean. We debate back and forth on that. I'll be honest. There's a guy on my team that honestly has reworked that diagram. He believes it should be, and I don't necessarily push back on it. He's the guy who manages the Latin America region, and he believes it should be in there. He's kind of reworked the pathway to include Cloud Plus in there. We've gone back and forth with our product team on it, and it's a debate. There may be some point at where it is, but right now it's not. Right now they don't consider it to be a part of that. But in the future, do we change that? Maybe. But there are other people that think as you do.
Well, let me ask you this question as kind of a follow-on to that. And I'm not trying to throw a tripwire here at you, but okay, what is the industry that you're serving say they want? Because a lot of times, like you guys collaborate with industry. I know that AMCA collaborates with the medical industry, and you build your search around the need and what you hear the end state being. So tell us a little bit about how you'd be looking to get feedback about Cloud Plus from industry.
Well, just as we always do with the subject matter experts. I mean, we rely on them heavily. I mean, we with the job task analysis, we're doing analysis of what the job roles are. I mean, sometimes some of these roles end up becoming, I mean, if you look at like A+, Net+, Security+ over the years, they have expanded a lot. I mean, we have some people tell us like, man, Security+, that's gotten, I mean, even more challenging. There's just more and more to cover. And so because of that, because each of the core certs seem to be like they're covering more and more, we're very sensitive to throwing another cert into that core bundle, I guess you could say, because they continue to expand. And sometimes I wonder if we don't need, to be honest, some more certs around the ITF level, like maybe a networking fundamentals or security fundamentals, something almost to bridge the gap, especially for like the high school market, because for a lot of students, A+ is hard, in high school, or Security+ is hard in high school, or Network+ is hard in high school. Could we have some more options for them, like some more of the kind of the not job ready certs, but more of the foundational, essentials type certs that will help bridge the gap. So we'll see on that, but we have a whole network of subject matter experts that we talk to and value their feedback. And they really, like I said, we don't do anything in a vacuum. It's relying on what the industry is telling us, what the data is telling us. At some point, the data may tell us that is, our core cert that you truly need before you get into infrastructure or cybersecurity or data analytics. As of right this second, it is where it is, and that could change. But right. But it's based on our data, job task analysis, feedback from the subject matter experts, all that factors in. But it's a debate going on right now. See, a little bit with Linux too. A little bit with Linux, to be honest, too. Right. There's some debate around that, because Linux is everywhere
too. For sure, in these fundamental courses, practice labs to me are essential. You know, it's kind of like see it, do it, know it mentality. And so that's one of the reasons that I think how you put your material together really, there's not, everything's covering down. There's been a true technical crosswalk between product, skills, critical tasks that relate, you know, to the CERT exam, but then that crosswalk to the, okay, what's that look like in the virtual lab setting?
Yeah.
Because these students today, they're not just about the what, they're the why and the how group, okay? And so particularly if you're going to learn this, I think that's very important.
Agree. I strongly recommend labs.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I got another question over in the chat box here. Going along with the Google question before, are the Microsoft certs on Azure and so forth considered a job ready, industry ready type certification in your mind?
Yeah, absolutely. You'll see in a lot of our pathways in which we show, and we're the only folks that I've ever seen do this, to be honest, but in a lot of our pathways in which you'll see in that interactive pathway document or thing online, you'll see we mention a lot of the different industry certs out there. So folks like Microsoft and Cisco and Amazon and others, you know, strongly recommend getting our certs first before you dive into those vendor specific ones. But whatever pathway you're on, you're going to get a combination of vendor neutral and vendor specific certs. So the vendor neutral certs are designed to help you get that foundation before you jump into the vendor specific stuff. So very specific products like a Cisco's or a Microsoft. So yes, a Microsoft Azure cert is certainly, you know, a job ready type cert. I mean, they're going to probably expect something like that if you're going to be working on Microsoft, you know, cloud products or whatever. So absolutely. And again, our pathway, if you look at some of those interactive pathways, we pull out, we tried to throw out a lot of the junk out there. Unfortunately, there's a lot of junk out there when it comes to certs, and it can be very confusing for folks. And we tried to highlight some of the most industry recognized certs out there, you know, the Amazon ones, the Microsoft ones, the Cisco ones, and other industry recognized certs like from CYSA and others. So yeah, so hopefully that helps. But check out that site and let me know if that doesn't help you.
In that regard, Kirk, the last question that I see so far in the box here is, can you show the slide on all the certification CompTIA offers? And I know that, you know, we're going to send these back out to everyone. Okay, so you'll get this. And you also mentioned the website. I mean, there's a place that you go on your website and you can pull up a very interactive pathway mapping for roles, functions, responsibilities to career certifications that get you in that direction. Okay.
Yep. Let me pull up that slide as well.
So I just want the audience to know that this is in fact in Kirk's briefing, the IP or the URL address here at the top of the career pathways. You want to definitely just copy and paste that into your search engine, and that is a fantastic resource. And I know that our training assessment managers use that often when having some of these initial pathway discussions with a student that's trying to figure out, okay, what way to go? Tell me how to get there. This is the root of that discussion.
Absolutely. Yeah, we spent a lot of time on this. I think it turned out really nicely, but certainly open to feedback if there's other things we should include in that. But I think you'll find that's really informative. And as I said, if you kind of start going down the rabbit hole a little bit, as you keep clicking on like learn more, you'll see like things like, again, beginning, intermediate, you know, expert level in terms of the different types of certs you could expect to get along the way, different types of job titles, salaries, et cetera, et cetera. It's a really nice tool, I think.
Right. Well, Kirk, I want to thank you for just a fantastic presentation and a very interactive Q&A. I want to thank our audience for some really thoughtful questions. I don't want to play cards with any of you guys because you're all smarter than I am on this stuff. But I want to thank you again, and then Kurt, if you would just go to the last slide if you can in your deck. because I just want to take time out to once again.
Oh, no, what happened?
That's okay. That's okay. I'll just
shoot.
verbally do it. Verbally, just a high five, if you will, all the great corporate sponsors that once again have stayed with us this week and have been a large part of our success and know will be there for us in our future. So Kirk, once again, thanks for a fantastic presentation. I wish all of you a great afternoon, and a reminder that if you're not signed up already, our next session does start at 3 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time with a jumpstart enrollments with financing possibilities from our friends at Climb Credit. Can't tell you how many times we get questions about, can you tell me about the CompTIA course and how can I get that paid for? Well, that's going to give you some options to consider, particularly in these days when financing is literally in everybody's forethought. So once again, Kirk, I owe you probably a beer and a dinner when we can meet virtually again without face mask on. Great presentation. Really proud of what you've been able to do here for us, and once again, your continued support of CETI. You've been one of our best supporters ever. So you have a great day, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to be with you guys, and appreciate the audience.
Good afternoon, all.